I don't have to tell you things are bad. Everybody knows things are bad. It's a depression. Everybody's out of work or scared of losing their job. The dollar buys a nickel's worth. Banks are going bust. Shopkeepers keep a gun under the counter. Punks are running wild in the street, and there's nobody anywhere who seems to know what to do, and there's no end to it. We know the air is unfit to breathe, and our food is unfit to eat. We sit watching our TVs while some local newscaster tells us that today we had 15 homicides and 63 violent crimes, as if that's the way it's supposed to be. We know things are bad, worse than bad. They're crazy. It's like everything everywhere is going crazy, so we don't go out anymore. We sit in the house, and slowly the world we're living in is getting smaller, and all we say is, please, at least leave us alone in our living rooms. Let me have my toaster and my TV and my steel-belted radios, and I won't say anything. Just leave us alone. Well, I'm not going to leave you alone. I want you to get mad. I don't want you to protest. I don't want you to riot. I don't want you to write to your congressman because I wouldn't know what to tell you to write. I don't know what to do about the depression and the inflation and the Russians and the crime in the street. All I know is that first, you've got to get mad. You've got to say, I'm a human being. My life has value.
Good afternoon, good evening, everybody, and welcome to Global Watchman News. My name is Lori Swan. I hope you guys are all doing well. If you are in the live chat, we do ask you to keep it family friendly. There will be moderators in there to make sure that we stay within the terms of service put forward to us by the platforms we're utilizing tonight. If you're new to the channel, welcome. Take a minute, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell so you know when we go live. So it's great to be back, guys. I've missed you all. I do have a lot of stories to tell, some funny ones that hopefully tomorrow night when we come live, I'll be able to tell you guys. But tonight is a show that you are going to want to share with your social media right now. We're going to be talking about a few things that we've been talking about for years, but we haven't been able to find anybody to really bring us what's really going on. So tonight we're going to have Ernie, of course. And Ernie, I want to say thank you for picking up the slack while I was gone. You did a fantastic job.
What's slack? I only was on twice, and I messed up on the second one. Come on, man.
Come on. Hey, look, you did fantastic. That's all I want to say. I've had so many people messaging me going, "Yay, Ernie!" So I guess I need to be careful because you could, when I retire, you could. I could have my replacement here, right?
Who said anything about you retiring? No, you were already gone for a month. I mean, you're in Jamaica sipping daiquiris. You are staying here. So
Jamaica. I was in Jamaica, man. That's right.
Me tired like garbage man.
That's right. And we're also going to welcome to the co-hosting position seat. We've got Trisha Marie with us. Trisha.
Hey, everybody. I'm so excited to be here. You guys don't
What's
even
up, girl?
Exactly. So a while back, Trisha had brought to my attention a TikToker, and throw me the links and everything. And so I checked out his TikTok. And this gentleman right here goes by the name of Big John, is in studio today, and I'm going to let him introduce himself. John.
Yes, hello everyone. I'm Big John. Some of you may recognize me. It's your old pal. That's what I always say. You can find me at TikTok at Big John 24982, and I'm very glad to be here tonight. It's my first guest on any podcast ever.
Woohoo! We are first. And I'm assuming this won't be your last, because your TikTok has definitely been picking up. I know that you were not around for a while. You were gone for a couple of weeks, and everybody missed you.
Yes, yeah, oh yeah. I got lots of comments, and it's fun. I try to I believe I've stayed on the same genre of the realness since I've started, and I just try to be real with everything that I say, and I do give out disclosure, but I don't want people to know. I think we're at a time on the planet that it's time for everybody to get some kind of a glimpse or even a thought, no matter where they come from or what they believe, that at least they can have some kind of a chance to know, whether it's good or bad.
Exactly. Well, let's kind of dive into what your content is. You have a background where when you talk, you pretty much know what you're talking about.
Yes. I know of and an operation that's how I started it. I started talking about the realness of Jesus and some about my conversion to a believer on August 26, 2015, and I thought it was time to disclose, and probably I still think at the time it was the only disclosure, even the simple topic of the particular mummies at the time they told us that were taken out of a museum in the first few months of 2003.
Right.
And I let that go, and of course I may or may not have been there.
I cannot confirm nor deny.
Yes. I got tired of saying that on the videos, but
well, for my chatters here, and for the people that have been listening to me over the years, understand that I have repeatedly told you guys about the truth behind our invasion of Iraq, of Baghdad. And I always tell you guys that when a military goes into the city and takes over a city, the first place they go to are the government buildings, and that's what they go into, and they secure the government buildings. That wasn't the case when they breached the walls of Baghdad, was it, John?
No, it wasn't the case at all. It wasn't, this is actually going to be quite a few days before any military unit, which would have consisted of 4th Brigade, that even touched the outskirts of the city, along with Marine Corps. This was very peaceful when this particular operation happened.
Because they just went in, and they went to the museum.
Yes.
Not a government building at all.
No. It was they knew exactly. OPSEC had it squared away. They knew exactly what was going to be taken. I do mention that, in my opinion, things that were there, they could blow your mind, but they were ignored. And like I said, I didn't know much in those days. I didn't know anything. I thought it was, literally King Tut. We all giggled about it, didn't know anything about it, but I noticed that they had Egyptian things in this place, and I was pretty smart in school, and it stayed with me over the years that why would Egyptian things be in a Mesopotamian or Sumerian or even Babylonian, of course? Why would it be there? And then all my revelations to even when I, came out with this, this content, it all connected within the last 7 years. So, I spent 18 years not, knowing, remembering things and talking to people, but it never clicked until I converted to a believer in Jesus. And then it all came, it got revealed, I guess, the whole point of Revelation, right?
Right. And you had mentioned that, how could I put this, that during these operations that you may or may not been involved with, there was almost like a prerequisite for people that were not believers.
Yes. They I guess in those days, it's not like today. Now, I haven't talked to many military members today, but I know there's more of a war on Christianity per se in the military now. It wasn't really talked about. I was asked more in secret, I guess. Now they probably have paperwork, or it's more discussed openly. But when I was in the military, it's kind of like well, what you believe is your thing, and of course it was still in the dog tags what your preference religion was, whether you had one or not. I don't know. I didn't know if they still do that, but anyhow, it was talked about through. There was a certain contractor, and I do say it's an alphabet company, but I leave it up to the people to figure out. It's not one of the ones that they know, but I believe I even said that it's also a services company, but it's a 3-letter, and they would definitely talk to us and chit chat, but analytically they're getting information from you to see where your mind's at, is how I call it. Do you have family at home? Do you talk to this person? And they kind of see kind of where you stand in the world. Like, are you in the military because you love weapons, or or you here for college, or stuff like that. But always later on, like I said, I always figure out like, oh, you know what, that makes sense now why they would ask us that.
Well, and this was right around the time that they were mainstreaming the different religions, allowing them into and being recognized in the military, like the Church of Satan and stuff like that.
Yeah, there was a lot of that. I do remember from my time, at my post, that I do recall a lot of talk of like, Luciferian worship and stuff, but I guess I was just, I thought they were just mad at their family. You know what I mean? I thought they might've been like, different, or what you might see on, a talk show or whatever. And but there was a lot of activity, and I always brushed it off as, they're just, they don't know what they're talking about. I guess I was an atheist, but I guess I might've been like agnostic, because I didn't really look on the evil side neither,
Right.
But there was but definitely talked about to set up a, like, who's the knowing, do you know of the Lord, or do you know him, like, is he in your heart? But that to me, that was definitely we were pre-questioned, pre-qualified per se.
Why do you think that was?
I think because if somebody knew the history, and I only say that because of what I found out in a short time about, that was where Abram was from. Of course, that's where, all the talk of the Anunnaki and Zechariah Ascension, and basically, everything of ancient aliens, that's where it all started. That's a cradle of civilization.
Right.
And I think that somebody who knew that biblically, and then knew the Lord strong enough to where I think they would be like, probably try to do something. You know what I mean? Maybe, not hurt anybody, but I think they definitely would have made a case about it. But I always said there's always, the atmosphere around people is, of course, your spirit. And I think, of course there's atmosphere, of the earth and stuff, but I think atmosphere, there's so much influence, whether, you think of evil, or you have wrath, you know what I mean? It's like a human emotion is so strong. So I think that it would have shifted for them if somebody there knew the Lord on a very good level. I think it would have caused problems. And I think that's why they didn't want anything. They wanted everybody's mind to kind of be like today, like, oh, don't think about the good stuff. Don't think about a good family. Don't think about, going to work. And, you know what I'm saying? It's just, to me, it's just that. And I try to explain that the best I can. And, you know, and in other words, I try to explain everybody so like everybody can kind of get on the same page. And I've been told, well, you do explain things pretty good. And
Yeah, you do. That's for sure. Yeah, I think they were probably. I mean, these Luciferians that run this whole dog and pony show at the moment, they're pretty aware of the fact of who's who and what's what and what's coming and what's
of course.
So I think they were mostly afraid of maybe discernment for those believers going in there and knowing that this is not right. You guys are bringing forth these demigods or these entities that we've been warned about in the Bible.
Of course, exactly it. And like you said, they don't want any kind of like how little it may be, because of course God goes everywhere. So they didn't want any kind of hint as much as they could. I think they, kept it as, of course, military bearing, and money was paid. And I think they kept it like as a, hey, look, you get some R&R, get this done, get you some good cash on the side. They kept it like, I guess I could say like, college boy stuff. Hey, let's go have fun real quick. Let's go out. Then that was that. But
right.
They kept it. I think they kept it definitely nonchalant as possible. But of course, then now there were who I call the high priority, and then the direct. The direct was, I believe, was an ambassador, and then the high priority was a Native American man, and I overheard just a few words, and they were discussing the female entity that was in the egg.
So before we go on to that, you're mentioning the egg. Now that's got me intrigued because I think I know what you're going with, where you're going with that, but can you explain what? So they found an egg where?
They found an egg in the lower levels. Now, depending on what level you were assigned to, you didn't have clearance. So they did explain that you could be punished if you're assigned to tier 1 and you make your way down to tier 2 or tier 3. And of course, everybody, has their own level that they have clearance for. So anybody supposed to be on tier 1 cannot go down into tier 2. You could be, an old Vietnam War term, fragged. So yeah, that's they kept it like I guess everybody knows a certain aspect of it. The only reason that I did not see anything in the lower levels except what they brought up, which was like 4 tablets, and then they brought up the longer crate, and then the egg. They brought up an egg.
So they brought up tablets.
Yes.
So are these the same tablets that Stitchin was?
No. When these are the same tablets. I'm going to give credit to someone. His name is Steve Quayle. He has Gen 6 Productions.
Yep, we know Steve very well.
Okay, good. Okay, so I used to talk to Steve back and forth on emails years ago. Steve, of course, has his expedition in Mexico City outside of it, in the Toltec, in the old Toltec ruins. And earlier of last year, when he came out with his first part of the dig, he had a tablet, which he does say what it is, and I believe him, that it is showing Rahab, the planet from the Book of Job, which was Lucifer's throne at one time. And that tablet he dug up, I saw the same image on the tablet that was brought out of that museum.
Wow.
And I thought to myself, when he revealed that, I had it, and of course, I've already been a believer in, doing extensive things, and I said, this should show people that how did these two different cultures at two different times on this planet have the same image, with, in other words, showing like these, it looks like a pincushion, like Steve claims that to him, it's like that these stargates, are escaping Rahab before, God turns it to the asteroid belt. And I said, that's perfect, because that's exactly the same image that I saw, at that time, 18 years ago.
Right.
So,
wow. So okay, so they brought out those tablets. They brought out an egg, and you said two mummified.
Well, they call them mummified. I did not. I only overheard the Native American man and the direct were talking,
Okay.
and they were talking about the queen. They seemed pretty excited about her. And the only way I correlated that years later was when I learned about the Babylon workings of Jack Parsons and L. Ron Hubbard in the Mojave Desert. And they claim they brought forth the reincarnated Ishtar. And as a child.
So Semiramis and Nimrod.
Right? Yes. And I do claim him as Osiris. Nimrod, same thing.
Right.
I do, Osiris and Ishtar. So I mean, it gets different names, different cultures, but I always stuck with the Egyptian because now I know the Egyptian is so important because that's the original, entities on the planet.
I have a question. So could the second male mummy have been Osiris's brother? I forgot his name, but isn't he the one that chopped him up or had him chopped up?
Yes. Now, what was said about this is the only piece that I've heard that the male was in pieces. I don't, if the other one was in there, it may have been. I've come across a story like that. I'm going with the fact that I only heard that there was one male and he was in 13 pieces. Now I've heard before that there was, like you said, Set, which would have been the one that did that. But I can never, really say for sure whether I, said it in third party or not. I don't know, but there was in fact 13 pieces of Osiris.
Wow. And he's missing his penis, and that's what the
the phallus. Yes, that's what Ishtar designed the phallus out of gold, and she performed the apotheosis ritual, which is just kind of popping up. I don't think nobody's ever talked about that before. I mentioned I'm not special, but I know that I looked around and I'm like, wow, nobody's ever mentioned this apotheosis. Now it has been mentioned by, of course, Steve Quayle and Dr. Thomas Horn and everything. And I think at the time that they weren't, I don't think many people knew about them. I think they were censored in their own way. Of course, they're both very successful. And I found that I had a dream about Steve Quayle when I first converted. I didn't know anything about him. I was told by the Lord about Steve Quayle. He told me Steve, and he said about the flood of Noah, and I was like, "What is that about?" And just come to terms, there's Steve, and I find him. I'm like, "Wow, this is incredible to me." And I did disclose to Dr. Tom Horn. When Steve came out with his DVD, which I believe was called The Holy See was that episode. But Dr. Horn had talked about that he had photographs of the operation at the museum, and there was particularly a photograph that might have somebody in it. And so
somebody with wavy curly hair, maybe?
Well, it may not have been at the time, but it may.
So, okay. So how does this connect to the JPL ritual they had out in the desert in was it the 40s?
Yes, it was 47. Now, this is just me, and of course other people say it too. I totally believe them. And it just makes sense to me because, like I said, I connected what I heard years ago to what the particular story is, which was fact about that project because Parsons did discuss it. And so the connection, I believe, is they call her the W of Babylon, and they wanted to bring her forth through reincarnation through this Babylon workings, which the Babylon workings is kind of what is talked about in Ezekiel chapter 8 about the bed and the pillows and stuff. Those particular words don't mean that, bed and pillows. It's essentially where the soul is replaced or brought back because of interactions with the human female and a succubus.
Okay, so it's kind of like what happened Was it in Genesis 6?
Yeah, Genesis 6. Yes, yeah. That's with the Nephilim, whether they came down in their form or they look like men, which I think they look like men because I think the story of Sodom and Gomorrah tells us that the angels look like men. That's what they were noticeable by the people of the town. So I think that during the Genesis 6:4 narrative, they came down and looked like men. Because I would think if they were in their real form, I don't think the human women would I think they would run from them, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But yeah. So I think I think they did come down as trickery because and now I don't want to get off topic, but like I've researched probably 428 abductions, and a lot of them involve to where people see maybe they're either dead husbands or dead wives or kind of what I would consider familiar spirits, like Paul talked about.
Right.
But yes, the Nazis did this. They did the Babylon workings. That's where they got most of their technology. Because
you're saying so everybody's on the same page here. You are actually confirming that the Nazis had fallen angel technology.
100%, cannot change my mind.
Okay.
Same page. Yep, absolutely. All right. And another thing I just want to clarify for people too is when we talk about the Anunnaki and we talk about the fallen angels and we talk about the aliens, those are the same entities.
Yeah, definitely.
Aliens are not extraterrestrial; they're interdimensional.
100%.
Okay.
Demons
and fallen angels and all of that in that realm. So when you hear hear us say Anunnaki and things like that, that's still the fallen.
100%.
They're just terms to represent the fallen angels. That's all there is.
Yes. And I even include Nephilim hybrids as, your Bigfoots, your fairies, your leprechauns, whatever, any kind of story of that. I think those are all definitely Nephilim related. And I'd just say Nephilim hybrid. There's lots of more heavier researchers than me that I have come across different things in my life, whether they be cryptid or, maybe a fairy tale, that you remember as a kid. But definitely
all those fairy tales and all those so the fairy tales, the nursery rhymes, and then the classes that we've all taken, the Roman mythology and the Greek mythology.
100%.
Come to find out, guys, it's all real.
Sure
and
is.
creepy.
It's all real. There's nothing nothing
fake about that.
Yeah.
I can't even say there's nothing fake about that.
Exactly.
I
right.
mean, you look at like those entities like Thor and and Zeus and stuff like that. Yeah, they have to be real. I mean, it goes by personal accounts, right? That's what history is.
Of course, yeah, and it's almost like it's like a reflection. I now don't quote me on this, and I may be wrong, but I think when Plato wrote about Atlantis, there were 10 kings, I think, in there because it's 5 sets of twins that Zeus had, maybe.
Yes.
And well, the last empire and the Revelations in our Bible, are 10 kings, and I'm thinking, that's the exact same correlation as what Plato described, that these because of course Zeus and the sons were fallen angels, but it's like 5 sets of twins controlled Atlantis, and now they're talking about this last kingdom has 10 kings. I don't know. I thought that was an interesting correlation.
Now, and I believe, and maybe I'm not correct on this, but I think maybe you agree with this. The powers that be, the Luciferians, the military, the government leaders of this world are doing whatever they can to bring back these demigods, to bring back this Anunnaki, to bring back these men of renown that we're told about in the Bible, the giants.
Of course. Yeah, no doubt about it, because I'll throw this in there. Whether you want to call them Illuminati or Luciferian or elite or the people very high up, they can trace their bloodlines back to the Tower of Babel. And even before that, my belief is they can go back even before the flood of Noah, that they know where they come from. And it's I know there's numerous accounts of people talking about that, and their whole thing is, it doesn't matter, if you believe me or not, nobody's gonna believe you. Even if you did know, you can tell them all day, but that's the beauty of it. And that was actually a story from a high-ranking Illuminati member to a former Los Angeles detective that was his driver. And they said, oh, he goes, because all the conversations this guy heard in the limo and stuff, it's like, he goes, yeah, I'll tell you what, I'll you write your book, I'll even publish it, but the best part is nobody's ever going to believe you, so I'll just help you out and publish your book for you.
Wow.
That's the thing. That's their attitudes of it. But I think, yes, they do know their bloodlines. They know where they come from, and bringing them back 100,000,000%, because they, the entire Oscar awards, the Oscar is Nimrod himself.
Yep.
And in 2016, there was a painting of a tower at the Oscars, behind the celebrities. Because the Tower of Babel was just, they love that. That is so Hollywood. That is so Luciferian, because Osiris or Nimrod, he did what the fallen angels could not do. He was born a human and he became them. When it says he became a Gibberim, that is a direct DNA change in the scripture.
And how did he transmute himself? Did he injected himself with something? How did he do it?
Well, I'm going to say this. The Tower of Babel was a multitude of things. It wasn't that it was tall. It was that he had a Stargate with it to arm it. And it was a bioengineered temple. So the whole fact about the mutating of the human genome has always been the only objective of the fallen. They cannot stand humans. They are going to twist it, and they accomplished that in Genesis 6:4, and they had accomplished it at the Tower of Babel. And then, like I said, this is just from my research and what I've heard, so I know people may get mad at me, but Ham's wife was the only bloodline of Cain that survived the flood. And from what I understand, she had the Rh negative factor, the only female that had it at the time. And he took that factor and he engineered it to make what they call, I would say the jab per se.
Yep.
But he
100%.
talked about what he did, which was fact from the scripture, that he transformed genetically. And he had super soldiers, which the Nazis called the Übermenschen, the Supermen. And they got that from Nimrod. But when he opened up the Tower of Babel, and it says that they could see God and God could see them and he knew what they could do, he literally opened up the gates to heaven, with the portal. And the objective was to war with God, because he had the entire population 244 years after the floodwaters receded, all at the tower. And that's when, obviously, it says they know what they can do. And he split the continents, the languages, the people. He sent Nimrod and Nimrod's satanic priests, basically, he sent them to Negev. And then the rest of the world, of course, the continents started going apart, and that way they couldn't come together again and, accomplish that, which I think they're got it back together right now. And there's nothing new under the sun per se. So it's just going to be the same kind of operation. And
right. So prior to the Tower of Babel being destroyed, there was still Pangea.
Yes, Genesis 10:25. The earth was not divided in those days.
Okay. So when they divided it, and God spread everybody out, and he told everybody, that's it, you're done. I'm dividing you all up. He divided the people. He divided the lands. This is where it all gets quite confusing, because part of the cradle of civilization was taken out of the original spot where they're saying it is today in Egypt, in that area. And it's actually in another part of the world too, right?
Yes.
So should we go down that rabbit hole right now?
I
Yeah,
do
yeah,
have
definitely.
I do have kind of a comment before we do that. Made some interesting correlations with the Tower of Babel and the changing of the genome. It reminds me of what the UN building looks like, and it's quite similar to the Tower of Babel. I'm pretty sure everybody in this room agrees. And changing the genome, isn't that what they're trying to do right now when it comes to the thing we're not
Yes.
supposed to talk about?
Yep.
100%. There's nothing new under the sun. They know
Nothing
the
new.
fallen know no other operation except what they left with when they were kicked out.
Because they're not
Right.
creators.
Exactly. They're going off operational awareness for what they had on their plate when it was time to go out of the first estate, out of heaven, kicked out. And real quick, I always correlate it. Like if people ask me, I try to. This is what I use. Okay. God
yeah.
knows. God knows.
You Parliament, yeah, that's right. I'm sorry, but
You're good.
okay, go ahead.
God knows obviously so much more than anything ever existed, right? And he's the top dog.
Uh-huh.
So when Lucifer and the fallen were still before the first fall, before when they're still up there, they didn't know what God knew. But this is how I correlate. Okay, so you got 5 people, on the earth today that know the secret ingredient of Coca-Cola, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, just imagine that only God knows the secret ingredient of Coca-Cola. Well, now you have RC Cola, you have Shasta, you have Sam's Choice. You got colas, but they're not Coca-Cola.
Right.
So that can only
Pepsi?
tell you that they know something, but they don't know everything. So they have a little bit of technology, but they don't have the real thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so when they left, they only had enough to where they can just, bamboozle humans to be like, oh, wow, look what you got. So they gift you, this stuff, but it's just, this is like, mediocre stuff to God. This is like, oh yeah, well, I don't want them to have that, but it's who it is. Y'all going to go show them this stuff. Just like Enoch described about warfare and even drug use and other things that, the fallen or the watchers per se, taught man. So, there's always been an ask of like, of technology, but just not, the good stuff per se, but just enough to kind of, get man to be deceived.
Mm-hmm. Can I ask before we go into that other topic? Is CERN? Would you say they're doing the same thing the Tower of Babel?
Yes. Now CERN is considered a star. If you want to call it a Stargate or a portal or gate maker or whatever, words, because I mean the Tower of Babel, literally, the gate of the gods, Babylon. Mm-hmm. So the CERN is the only thing I know that's very interesting about it is it's actually built underneath the old city of Apollyon, which happens to be the name of Abaddon or Apollyon, different cultures.
Right.
But that Hadron Collider is built underneath that Apollyon. I'm thinking, well, that's bottomless pit, and this thing Apollyon comes out of it. That I just find that odd. I mean, it's odd, I guess, per se, but we know why they really did it. But yes, the CERN and then any Stargate, which there was the Stargate recovered in Baghdad that belonged to Nimrod.
Right.
And the Russians have one they recovered from Baalbek, which is in Lebanon, and there are even some indigenous tribes that have some somewhere in Utah. So Stargates, or there's lots of them.
It's interesting you should mention Utah because another TikToker, it was, and I think Trish, I shared this with everybody. There was a TikToker who had like 5 videos, and she was part of an archaeological dig in Utah. And remember her? And
she disappeared or something.
She completely disappeared after she put out that they found something, and it was not going to be an archaeological. It wasn't going to be an archaeological, find that it was going to be a military, and
100%.
She said that the military were going to be moving in, and then she would tell us more, and she completely disappeared.
100%. Yes. Yep.
Well,
And
okay.
they've been hiring. They've been putting out ads for, was it archaeologist in that
They
in
have been.
Utah?
Yeah, we
Yeah.
actually verified that after that
Mhm.
when we found her. We're like, well, let's verify this, and we found that they were putting out the call that they were hiring. So okay, so you're saying that, I mean, there's different aspects of the Stargate. You're saying Utah. I believe that's true because of what the information that we uncovered. But to go back to Pangea, during the Tower of Babel, when God separated us and scattered everybody, and he also broke apart the continent and created the continents that we have today from Pangea, that a lot of the artifacts and a lot of the people and a lot of the cultures were taken, with those people to those different continents. And it's the only thing that explains the fact that we have the same story being told by just about every civilization on the planet. They all
Yes.
have similar stories, similar drawings, similar
Yes.
history. So I'm going to throw something up on the screen right now, and I'm going to see if anybody in our chat room knows exactly where we're going to go with this.
Uh-huh.
Let's talk about the biblical aspect of the United States, because there are Egyptian tombs and Egyptian artifacts that have been found and covered up in the Grand Canyon. There are mounds of giants bones that have been found in the United States that have been whisked off by the Smithsonian Institute, never to be seen from again. And we have indigenous people here that talk about sky people, and they talk about the giants, and they talk about human eating giants.
Yep.
So let's talk a little bit about the United States actually being the biblical Holy Land. Because, Satan likes to twist, he likes to mirror, and he likes to twist, he likes to counterfeit. So let's talk a little bit about that.
I'll say this. I'll start it with this. If you put the continents back together and you include margin of difference of like erosion and everything, you're going to have like a smaller than a tangerine basically on a map, in the middle of all the continents. So they do fit together. Any kind of architect or geologist or any rock expert, they'll tell you that, yes, that Pangea is definitely real. And I only know it to be real because the Bible says the earth wasn't divided.
Right.
So if you look where the United States was at, United States was actually north of Africa. And one thing I will include, which I won't go too much in, but people can kind of maybe smile about it or go research it. But the reason why the Vatican is built where it's at is because that's where the city of Nod was at.
Oh.
And of course, the Giza Plateau was which I believe were there before Adam. They were south, directly with the border of Canada and the United States. And people can say, well, did they ride the continents, when it was split? Did they take a trip on that? Well, yeah, that did happen. And then if you want to go straight to like the Grand Canyon, Mark Antony and Cleopatra's son took about 10,000 ships 234 years before Jesus was born and landed in California and ended up settling in the Grand Canyon. There were two known citadels that were Egyptian citadels. One was in Utah, one was in the Grand Canyon. The Kincaid expedition of 1903 made the newspapers that Kincaid found a tomb and said he found a citadel with, giants and Egyptian artifacts and just basically,
Mm-hmm.
Citadel is a big thing. It's this altars and obelisk and just like, this is Egypt. You be tricked. And the Smithsonian, being in my opinion, an arm of the Vatican, they wanted to promote Darwinism and isolationism. That was James Wesley Powell's main objective. And so they came in and they took all that because, I mean, you got to think, if you got the Vatican knowing all this and they're getting word that, hey, look, remember the giants that Joshua fought, they're over here. And not to mention, the Egyptians, we can't have this. We got to show that these indigenous tribes are just, they're primitive and don't know anything and this and that. No, can you imagine the aspect, like the implications of that Christopher Columbus didn't come here, that it was already occupied by way different groups of people here in the United States. And and let me think, one more thing I was going to say. The giant bones. Now, that's the Smithsonian. There were giants within Egyptian ranks, just like the Philistines, of course, had Goliath and his brothers. The Egyptians did have giants, and it was even talked about that there was giants in stasis in Utah that had Egyptian headgear, and of course, their the clothing or whatever, the tunics, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, so the Egyptians definitely were in the Southwest, 1,000,000%.
Wow. Well, do you remember back? I think it was in 2014 or something. There was a History Channel. It was a show called "The Search for the Lost Giants," and they were doing the digs here in North America, and they were finding these bones. And they actually got shut down because the Smithsonian came and said that they wanted to look at the bones that they had uncovered, and basically stole them and then denied even having them.
100%. And I will give, obviously, Mr. Quayle all the credit. When he came out with the extensive research in Europe on the islands of Sardinia and Malta, he interviewed numerous people in their 80s and 90s that can say when they were younger, whether farming or just kind of playing out in the plains of the island, they would always come across these what they called the in Sardinia they were called the Nuraghi people, which were the giants, and they had these Nuraghi towers, and there's numerous accounts of people finding mummified remains of giants, and some looking like they had just died, basically. But yes, now the Vatican, of course, probably obviously is a lot closer over there than the Smithsonian. That's why I said the Smithsonian had the same job as the Vatican, just across the ocean. And the Smithsonian, for a fact, I know, took a lot of stuff that would probably blow a lot of people's minds. That giant bones is something. This whole giant thing is very interesting, but the Smithsonian has stuff that would really make you stop for a minute, maybe put your hand through your hair and take a breath. Like, wow, there's a whole lot of stuff going on.
But that's hidden in the basement. They don't show us.
Of course not. Now, it wasn't released per se, but I after sure I can tell you how to get it. But there was a man that was interviewed that was his ex-father-in-law was very high in the Smithsonian, and this particular gentleman does not give us anything but his first name. I've never seen him, but he just tells, he confirms who his father-in-law is. If people wanted to really dig to see who this guy really was, but his father-in-law is definitely confirmed and was there, even part of the Cosmos Club, and the Cosmos Club is the ones who run the Smithsonian. It's kind of like their own little secret society that they have, and he confirmed a lot of stuff that he saw, particularly quotation in the basement, and listening to what he said that they have, and in one of my TikToks I was asked a question, but I kind of got attacked on it, but he claimed that that the sons of Horus, what we know of, were like these jars where they did the mummified organs or whatever. And Horus's sons each had a different animal head. Well, this guy who has the father-in-law that was confirmed high up there, he claimed that they actually have the real decapitated heads of the sons of Horus, that they were real entities. And they have the heads.
And were they animals?
Yes, they were half human. They were chimeras, so they were basically Nephilim hybrids.
Ah.
And this is what we see in the Egyptian on the hieroglyphs. We see the dog face or the dog head, the
Yeah, and the bird head, and
bird
I
head,
can't recall
right.
the other ones. Yes, but yeah,
Oh,
four
wow.
sons. The sons of Horus is four of them, and they have the actual heads that they recovered in America.
Well, that makes sense because the Vatican essentially, somebody had mentioned the Library of Alexandria. A lot of that stuff was taken. I mean, there are miles and miles and miles of tunnels underneath underneath the Vatican.
100%, and most of that stuff, yeah, all over the earth. The Shinkana, mostly known as in South America, in Peru, Cusco, Peru. Everybody has a story of the giants, of course, like we already mentioned, but Cusco, Peru, and like Sacsayhuaman and Tiwanaku and those different sites, the Incans even claim that, this, we didn't build none of this stuff. We just built on top of it. But another thing is, and this is also a credit to Sequel and Timothy Alberino, they always, they showed it and they claimed that, and they're right, that the Catholic Church always builds a church on top of all these areas.
Usually on top of a ley line,
Yes, and Cusco is literally the navel of the earth. It's literally the exact dimensions of where Cusco, Peru is at, and that's the Church of the Santa Dominga. And the actual entrance to the Shinkana was found by a Spanish archaeologist. I think his name was Anselm Rambla. He found the entrance because he befriended the priest there. But when he went back to explore more, the Vatican got word and they bulldozed that thing. They filled it in. Like, oh no, it's not even here anymore. But Anselm Rambla said, I saw the entrance to the Shinkana, this tunnel system that connects the earth.
Wow.
So I guess I'm kind of confused. Like, how do we have so much in common with the Bible land? Is there like, did Jesus walk the earth over here, or was he over there, or is there some kind of a portal? Or I'm just, I'm trying to wrap my head around it.
That's a good question. I never really thought about it. And only, I just believe the scripture about, where he was at and was crucified. To say that he never, that's, of course, he's the Lord. So I guess I've never looked into really, any kind of where he may have been, around the world at the time, if he could travel, well, I'm sure he could, but I don't know. That's a good one.
Well, I'm thinking they could have renamed, like, what if Israel was really, I don't know, Texas or something, because they changed things in history.
Yeah, that's possible. I mean, as much as, I've heard and researched and heard some more, and it's like, is it, now I know that the Phoenicians artifacts have been found in the Great Lakes area. And I'll tell you why, because of the copper. The most purest copper in the world is found in the Great Lakes area. And here's another tidbit that not many people know, but you may be able to find it. In the latter year, 2003, Saddam Hussein's sons, Qusay and Uday, they were holed up in one of their safe houses, and the 101st Airborne surrounded them, and they weren't coming out. So 101st Airborne put probably about 6,000 rounds of different calibers into that building. And now, a small tidbit that I heard from a museum news, that Uday had a copper armored breastplate of a giant, and the copper was examined, and it had the same. Now I'm going to jump back to the whole egg thing. Around the egg, there were copper and quartz, which I would call locking mechanisms. And the size of this armor also had the copper and quartz locking mechanism. So they put it on and split, kind of like a bulletproof vest, basically. Mm-hmm. And that copper was from the same deposit. You know how they can trace like uranium and stuff, like when if a weapon is used, they can trace where the uranium and plutonium was made at, mm-hmm. like who processed it. Well, copper is the same way, because copper is bulletproof. Only copper defeats copper, and that's why most of the giants, Joshua talked about the copper, that they had that kind of armor with them. And copper it regenerates. That's why God told David to go ahead and finish off Goliath with a decapitation, because that armor he had on would regenerate him. And then this isn't pennies and stuff, or even the copper because that's alloy. It has a lot of different like zinc in it and stuff, but pure copper. And there's a guy on TikTok that has a lot of copper from the Great Lakes, and it's blue. It's literally blue. And but yeah, that copper, very hard to destroy. And some even say, I've never confirmed it, I do believe it, that Joshua did lead. He did have a copper sword to defeat most of the armor on these things.
So I wonder if the copper that was around the egg, if that was from the Great Lakes.
Very possible. I know that the Phoenicians love the Great Lakes area. It's so much evidence of that. And the Phoenicians, of course, were the Canaanites. And also, I believe, in my opinion, that the second incursion, I say the second sexual incursion of the Genesis 6:4 narrative, where it says they were on the earth, and also after that, I think the second time was in Sidon, which was the capital of Phoenicia. And I think that's where the second incursion happened between the human women and then the fallen angels.
And that was after the flood? Yes. Okay.
Well, let's circle back to the flood really quick, because that leads me to a question that Trisha, me and you have talked extensively about it, as well as Lori. Now, Big John, you mentioned that this type of copper is found in the Great Lakes, which is one of the pieces of evidence showing that United States is a good candidate. One thing that I've researched is the materials used in the ark. The material used in building in the ark is gopher wood. Now, what we uncovered is this gopher wood is only native to the southeastern United States, particularly Florida. Have you came across that? And
I have not.
So,
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's one thing that I pulled up and was able to verify that gopher wood is actually originated in the purest form is only a select amount of country, but in abundance, it's in Florida.
Wow, that's very interesting.
Yeah, it makes your mind go, something ain't right here. I mean, Noah's Ark material was from Florida.
Yeah, there you go. And that would technically be Pangea before the flood, because it wasn't separated until after the flood. So, yeah, I did add in one of my videos, if you want to say that, the Anunnaki or Viper-like, which they were described as that by Enoch and by Zechariah Ascension, two different levels of experts, obviously, with them. An old wives' tale about vipers, I'll say a rattlesnake, is that I've always heard that they go back to where they're born. And I ended that in one of my videos that, yeah, this is Egypt, because the vipers, who in the original Egyptians are the Anunnaki. I said they always go back to where they're born at, and to me, they're coming home to roost. But yeah, that's interesting about that. And that would make sense that the Pangea was there during the flood, and then if that's found like that, that's very interesting, and I believe it 100%.
I'm just thinking, what if we were the Bible land? I mean, and they just lied to us, covered it up.
Well, they've lied to us about everything else. What makes us think that we wouldn't? Now, here's another thing is, so I just went across the Mississippi River not 3 days ago. Hold on a second. I got a cough. Excuse me. Okay. So, we know in the Bible, it talks about the Euphrates River drying up.
Yes.
And so, I went across the Mississippi River, and the Mississippi River is drying up. And there's been things that have been found,
like ships, right?
Yeah, strange things that are being found right now that the Mississippi River is drying up. Things that don't belong there, like artifacts that are completely out of place. Now, this does take me back to Project Bluebeam. We know that the 3 stages of Project Bluebeam, the first being that we were going to find things in places that didn't make sense, that would make us question the Bible and its validity. So that immediately comes into play, and into my head, thinking, maybe, but looking at all the information that we've looked at this, we've looked at this for months, guys. Everybody in chat, this is something that we've been looking at for months in our research group about the United States. And it's hard to ignore when you look at things. Memphis, Tennessee, guys. Have you ever been to Memphis?
Mm-hmm. They got the pyramid there.
There's pyramids in Memphis, Alexandria. And these things are on the mouth of the Mississippi, where they were on the mouth of the Euphrates back in the day.
And let's not forget about the symbolism at the Hoover Dam. What if the Hoover Dam is the real Euphrates or the Mississippi? And I know the lake, was it Lake Mead over there? It's drying up too. And they have all the fallen angel symbology all over that Hoover Dam.
Oh yeah, all over.
I just seen on the news today that a young boy died from a brain-eating amoeba that they think that originated from Lake Mead.
Really?
Oh wow.
Yep.
Yeah, Lake Mead. Yeah, that's a lot of interesting stuff to find there. All the bodies, and like I said, there's no telling what else.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, in Tennessee, like Norris Lake, and I'm not mistaken, it's like maybe Chilliwalle lakes. The Tennessee River Valley Authority, they were hooked up with the Smithsonian, and the Cherokee talk about it. And different of their old traditions, and even in some books, that there are pyramids in these lakes, and that the dams were built to hide the pyramids because the Smithsonian didn't have enough resources to, basically blow these things up.
The Smithsonian couldn't keep up.
Exactly. Yeah.
So they just put a big old dam there.
Yeah. and sunk it. And another story. This is something that was mentioned to me. There's the wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald in Lake Superior. Now, if you go look about that wreck, there's something unexplainable about it. The way that there was a hole punched in the bottom of it.
Yeah.
And they can't say, well, what caused that? Is that why, broke in half or took on water or whatnot? Well, what was sent to me was that the Edmund Fitzgerald didn't have iron ore, but it had that copper, profuse more amount of copper that was taken out of the Great Lakes, and it was being, that's what the load was. And this person claimed that the pyramid underneath the water in Lake Superior actually drew that ship to it, and ended up being where it was on top of it because of the conductiveness of the pyramid and that copper, and it punched a hole in it.
Oh.
And then, of course, stormy seas. Who knows? Has anybody ever been down there? I know they got pictures of it, but it's like, is it next to the pyramid? Was it tossed with the waters being stormy? Who knows? But he said that's where.
That's interesting.
And I thought that it was interesting. Whether
I've always been drawn to the Edmund Fitzgerald. That whole story was very intriguing when I was growing up.
Yes. And it was weird. Even to this day, they can't explain the hole right in the middle of the ship. I'm like, well, that's, it's kind of weird, but he just told me that, and I was like, well, that's interesting. I don't know. Stranger things have happened.
Right.
Yeah. Well, and I had heard, I was talking about this in our chat the other night, in our research chat, that I had heard the Luxor was built on sacred grounds. And then when I was researching this Israel and America thing, I came across somebody who said it was built over the real Luxor. I don't know, but I know this millionaire lady in Vegas who told me it was built on sacred ground. Don't ever stay there. It's cursed and it's going to come down one day.
Ooh,
she was connected. This lady I know,
yes.
She knew the casino owners because she was so high up,
I don't talk much about this topic. I'm going to kind of move around it the best I can.
Okay.
So the Luxor Hotel. Okay. So now whether this was written, now this is not what I'm going to say. This is just like a preliminary. When that magician, it might have been Chris Angel, and I think that guy gets powers from the demon side.
Oh, absolutely.
But he did the levitation supposedly above the pyramid, And I mean, whether you got people that can debunk it, I don't know. That guy looked like he was levitating to me with the power of that pyramid. But with that now, okay, there was an incident in Las Vegas, and I'm sure y'all know what I'm talking about.
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, here's something that is may not known, and y'all may know this. There was an incident in the country of Egypt at what they tell us is a real Luxor. Now, it was the same kind of event that happened in Vegas. So tell me how you had this event in Vegas in front of the Luxor, and in 1997 you had the same event in front of the Luxor city in Egypt. The same event, the same 58 people.
No.
No
Yes.
way.
Yes. Oh, yes. 97. Okay, listen to this. How many years apart was it? 21. What is 21 in the Bible? That's rebellion and sin. That's a ritual, my friends. Ritual. That ain't nothing just happens. Ain't.
Oh, and have you guys been there? Because we went there, my husband and I, we went there maybe 6 months after the event, we'll just say. And they're all connected. So from the Excalibur, the Luxor, and the Mandalay Bay, they're all connected underground.
100%. Yes, that was uncovered by. Like I said, I like to tell maybe off record that about a situation that would be like, oh, y'all be like, wow, that's really weird. But yes, Shepard and Bellis has his own show, and Shepard did what I think is the exact what happened exactly to the T what happened. And he has a lot of eyewitness testimony, and you can still find it if YouTube didn't scrub it, but about people in the underground tunnels reporting, shooters down there, and of course shooters everywhere. Yeah. But yes, they are connected.
Oh yeah, they're connected in the symbolism from that block, from where the Excalibur, is it the Excalibur, the one that looks like a palace, from there to the Mandalay Bay, it's all satanic, occult, all over. Not only on the outside of the buildings, on the sidewalk, the mosaic, they had the black sun.
Oh,
even
gosh.
Underground in the little tunnel mall, because it's a mall that connects underground, all satanic. Even the shops, everything.
Let me ask you this.
Don't call it Sin City for nothing.
Yeah, of course. That's exact. Let me ask you this. Where is the black sun at? The mosaic of it? Which one?
I want to say it's on the corner there.
What building is it on? Like which one? The Excalibur? I've never been there.
Let me.
I have to look again. It's I want to say it was kind of. Lori, look on the sidewalk on the corner there. Is it Tropicana Boulevard and the main intersection right there? The light. I want to say it's there, but I could be wrong. It could be in front of one of the casinos. I don't think it's Mandalay Bay. It's either the Excalibur. I'm going to say Excalibur. I could be wrong, but it's a big giant black sun, and it's like a mosaic, and it's huge.
Well, I'll tell you this: the Babylon workings don't work without a black sun prison.
Ooh. Oh, and there were two twin towers across the street. My husband discovered, because he goes, They made it look like unfinished constructions. There were two towers up across the street from the Luxor, kind of in the empty field near the airport. Yeah. There was two giant towers that were just there for no reason. It was kind of like, that's dumb. He said that was part of the ritual, he thinks.
I didn't find the black sun yet in Las Vegas, but I did find the black sun over the Hoover Dam.
Yes, they got that. And also, too, when I mentioned about the Nazis, they were at Wallenberg Castle, which was Himmler's private residence. And they would sit on top of the black sun that was on the floor. And that's where they would do the Babylon workings. But underneath it is called the Hall of the Dead. So they would bring in 13 SS soldiers and decapitate them. 13 of them. So 6 of them would face each other, the heads. And then you have the 13th on the end. And upstairs on top of the black sun, you had 13, you had Hitler and all his, higher ups. And then you had scientists on the outside. So they would bring in a woman, and she would, biblically know, per se, I'll use that word, a entity, and on the altar. And the altar is always the same size as King Og's bed, as described in Ezekiel, the same measurements. And so she's on the altar, and the entity is with her, the succubus. And after the act, she gives birth to a entity which is in the form of a plasma. And the plasma is then talked to harmonically, and when that happens, the actual demons come through the eyes beneath them and out of those heads, and each demon possesses each one in the chair on the Black Sun. And as they're all talking to the entity that has given birth physically, scientists are on standby and they're writing down the technology that these things are giving them.
Wow.
That's how that works. So the Babylon working is in two parts. You can have the act between the woman and the entity to bring forth, the plasma, to either whether you're going to reincarnate or whether that becomes something. And plus you have to have the killing, it's like a 2-part episode. I don't care for Aleister Crowley. I don't like reading the stuff. It kind of like hurts my mind a little bit, but Thelema is the exact same thing with that. And he can go into detail about each piece of the ritual makes the result stronger of what we would call coincidence in our minds is actual reality in the Luciferian's mind, because it's actually happening.
Wow.
Well, the first part, I think the first maybe 10 minutes of Hellboy.
Yes.
Is probably the most
very
accurate depiction that we've caught on film.
Yes. Yeah, with the Stargate. Yep, 100%.
Yeah.
I have to watch that again.
Oh yeah, it's when they bring Hellboy through the Stargate, because Hitler was big into the occult. I mean, he had.
Oh well, yes. I mean, he was.
If I had to put somebody next to Crowley as far as an occultic symbol or an entity, it would be Hitler.
Yes, definitely. Hitler even talked about being, possessed by the Spear of Destiny when he got in front of it, and talked about being possessed in Berlin. He wrote that in his own book about being possessed by Lucifer himself, and then of course being possessed when he had the Spear of Destiny in front of him. And he had the Anunnaki, which was a group that went around the world and were definitely part of the findings of New Schwabenland in Antarctica. And then also the other entrance to the Hollow Earth is in Tibet, which was if you want to get into the cities before Adam, where Shangri-La was at. And like I said before, the Russians discovered that when they finally entered Germany at the end of the war, they found a whole bunch of Tibetan soldiers. And because Anunnaki was in Tibet, I mean, they were just in huge cahoots, because Tibet has the actual entrance to Shangri-La and just, whatever you could think of,
And that was so Hitler was actually trying to find Shangri-La.
Yes, he definitely, they definitely found the entrance in Tibet. Wow. I don't think they had enough time. I'm sure they got what they wanted per se, but I don't think they had a whole lot of time left, because for some reason they brought all those Tibetans into Berlin. And that's when, it wasn't long before, each side of Germany, of course, is, the Americans and the Russians. But the Russians did. That is a factual account that they found, thousands of Tibetan soldiers wearing SS uniforms.
Wow. This is the picture of the sun.
I took that. It said December 28th, 2017, Henderson, Nevada, because that's technically where that thing took place. I don't remember which one it was in front of. I'm going to say it was probably Excalibur, because I think that's the main. Do you see the street? I think that's like the entrance from the side street, maybe Tropicana.
Okay.
I don't know. It's been quite a few years since I've been there.
It's definitely, it's anything with that representation of a black sun. That's what illuminates, Tartarus, hell, basically.
Wow.
And they love it. Artificial sun, that's what that is. Any kind of a fusion reactor. I saw like maybe last week, China launched one off the coast of off their coast, and it was never covered. It burned like at 70 million degrees for 17 minutes. And everybody's like, oh, no, they didn't say anything.
And that was happening right around the time that Mr. MBBB was reporting that they have pictures of our sun actually pulsating.
Yeah, it's how many rabbit holes, right?
Right, exactly. We could go down 50,000 rabbit holes tonight.
But
For
You
sure.
know
yes,
what happens
yeah.
when people try to play God, right?
That's
Yeah.
right, y'all. 100%. Yeah, that's what. Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely.
They
I
say
mean, go ahead.
even Atlantis, they say even Atlantis had an artificial sun, which ended up blowing up and sinking the city.
Jeez. Unbelievable.
Yeah,
I could go on forever talking and asking questions because there's just so much.
Yeah.
So,
I mean,
oh, go ahead.
all the evidence is pointing to, the U.S. more than likely being the Holy Land. So if we're the Holy Land, who's Mystery Babylon? I personally think it's NYC.
Yeah, it's definitely over here somewhere.
Yeah.
I think about it. I mean, it's now really quick back to Parsons and Hubbard's project. Before Parsons died, he said that a girl came to him, and whether in his dream or actually, it probably came to him, obviously, but to anybody else that would tell you, they'd be like, "Oh, it was just a dream. He was lying." But anyhow, he claimed that his workings did work. They did reincarnate the W of Babylon, brought her back through the gate as a child. Now, when that was said, when I finally researched that, in probably about 2017, I had overheard that conversation between the Native American, the high priority, and the direct. And they claimed, because like I said, they get excited about their queen. Well, they said that, well, she's already come through a gate as a child. And I didn't know that. I thought that was like, well, that's really weird stuff. Well, when you read about when Parsons said, yeah, we brought her back to the gate as a child. And that child's name, what he said was Hilarion.
Mm-hmm.
And, well, we know how that name translates.
Yeah.
And I will say this. She was born in that year.
Yes, she was.
And they claim that it was her mother. Parsons even said her name, and that's Hillary's mother's name. But here's something else that's odd to me. Now, this may be the old, just nonchalant coincidence. I talked about Hilarion on July 27th, and made a video of it. In other words, and and then like 4 days ago, I did one about how a particular person maybe could have stopped this, at a particular operation.
Mm-hmm.
And that video that I did, the Hilarion video from July 27th, and one I did from May the 21st of last year that pertains to my first disclosure ever said about an egg, were all taken down at the same time with no appeal under integrity and authenticity.
Wow.
So who went through that? Because y'all know I ramble. Anybody listens to me on there knows I ramble. I don't have a topic. I put hashtags, but I don't put no topic because I talk about everything. So somebody would have to go through every one of those and see at what part did I mention that.
Yeah.
So I just found that kind of odd.
Yeah, I mean, we're finding that a lot's going on. I mean, they hit us for Facebook posts that we've done 3 years ago. They've gone on YouTube and gone back 2 years on videos, trying to get us for whatever they can. I did think for a while that TikTok was going to be a little bit more lenient, but I'm not finding that anymore.
It's like Ernie said, it's like it's a lot of information, which you would think that they wouldn't let anybody know any of that stuff, or even give you like an ear to listen to that.
Yeah.
Not even a hint. But it's kind of odd that it's telling everybody who has never even thought about, maybe is not even a believer, maybe is not even anything, that they're getting a hint or just a thought of maybe this is Egypt, or who is Nimrod, or who is Gilgamesh, who is anything, who's Jesus, anything. Everything is being, every ear is almost hearing this, and it's like, why is TikTok doing that when they, don't seem to have the best of intentions for people?
Right. Yeah. I mean, the information that's being dropped, and just about every show that we come on, Ernie and I talk about at least one or two TikTok videos that validate what we're talking about, because the information over there is just so massive.
It is, and it's great. I mean, yeah, I'm like, oh, they got me again. But it's like, well, as as I'm scrolling, it's like of course you fit an algorithm, but it's like people that may have done the dancing videos or talk about nothing has to do anything with any kind of culture, and now they're like, I heard about this Gilgamesh guy, and it's
Yeah.
like, wow, okay, I can live with that.
Now, the Gilgamesh, is that the giant of Gandahar,
Well,
or is that separate?
this is my opinion of it. I think that is when Nimrod transformed into a Gibberim. I think that was his name change that he was given because he transformed, almost like the opposite of Abram and then Saul. I think that anything Luciferian is the opposite of what we believe as Bible believers.
Right.
So I think they also have a name change, like a conversion, if you will.
Well,
like when you get baptized, you get a
yes, like Saul
baptismal name.
became Paul, and then
Paul
Abram
became
became
Paul.
Abraham. I think that on the because in reality, Antichrist doesn't mean against; it means instead of.
Right.
Mhm.
So they have to have you can't have somebody come on the scene beating people up and doing bad things. You gotta have somebody that everybody's gonna trust. You know what I mean? And then he turns bad. So I think that they have to mimic and do everything opposite of Bible believers and Jesus believers to kind of not throw you off in other words, right away you can't say, "Oh, that's the Antichrist." I knew that exactly that is. You know what I mean? They don't want you to think that.
Yeah,
They want you to...
yeah, it's hard to. I keep changing my mind who the Antichrist is because they keep new information.
Well, here's something funny. Now, of course, like I said, this is I'll get this to y'all if I can. It's a locked PDF, but this is fact. One of our former presidents, his middle name's Hussein. He had claimed on his own that he was Akhenaten, which was right. I don't know if I'm saying it right. I got country twang. So King Tut's dad, right? One of our presidents said that he was him reincarnated. Now, fact, when they took King Tut's dad's DNA in Switzerland, they put out, it's all, you can find it, that he had what they call alien hybrid DNA. And you can learn in school, I learned in school that you had to be the lineage of the gods to be a pharaoh, whether that was real at the time. You know what I mean? We know now.
All you got to do
is
look at the time frame. We think that these pharaohs were only pharaohs for 50, 60 years. They were literally pharaohs for thousands of years.
100%. Yes, exactly. And it's kind of like, like perfect. You said that because it's like, who didn't catch that? And well, it might have been me because I don't, I was like, wow, you just said it again and it reminded me. It's like, wow, you're right. That's exactly it. And well, and he said that he was King Tut's dad reincarnated and then for a fact that particular person has a DNA that's not identifiable from the planet. And that's from a Swiss study. That's not somebody said that, made that up. That's fact.
Well, and if you look into the RH negative factor, and you see that scientists can't even pinpoint when this first appeared. It just kind of appeared.
Yes, exactly. And then
they can't pinpoint patient 0. They just know that it's from the Basque region of
the Basque region. Yes.
Which, if you look at the Basque region, the Basque have their own language that literally is not derived from any other language on earth.
Exactly. And did you know that the majority of the wars of the Antillans and the Huns that took place in Hispania, where the Basque region's at? And this is something I learned too, and I was told this, the entire objective of the Spanish Inquisition was to take control of these people. And the reason why they spent most of their time in South America with Pizarro was the fact that the Incans were the closest relations to the Basque people.
Wow.
What?
Yes.
They don't even look
What?
alike.
With the blood. See, here's the thing. People always they'll tell me, well, that's kind of inaccurate. I said, well, let me tell you this. Who were the chroniclers that came with the conquistadors? The
What's
Catholic priest. It was
Yeah.
a Vatican priest, straight from the Vatican.
Whoa.
That is fact.
That is fact. Yes.
Okay, so the Incans are somehow blood related to the Basque. They
Yes.
don't look alike, but they're
They are, yes.
interesting.
But here's another fact. Now, the Zuni Indian tribe of the Americas, mostly out of Utah, why do they have almost the same language as the Japanese people? And they don't look alike, but they have the same language.
Just wow.
Exactly.
So we can't, I get it. It's like, I'm like, I know I'm logical, but it's like, no, this is fact. Like
Lucifer has literally mixed up, twisted, put on backwards, upside down, everything and these people that are in charge of this, the powers that be that run this world, they know our history. Guys, we've talked about this. Our history is not what we are being told.
of course. This is just my opinion, and I have to say this. I give a disclaimer, because I don't want people to be like, "Oh, I'm gonna get him." But when you think about that, you're like, "Well, we all look different," because we all have if you believe that we were all the same place at one time with the Tower of Babel, right? Our ancestors, and it kind of correlates. Now, I'm not saying I'm translated this correctly. But I think when Paul talks about don't worry about the genealogy because it's mixed up anyways, I think that's what he meant. I think he meant, don't go too much off of like trying to, the mysteries of this because you come from the same place. We just don't know it yet. It's not revealed to you yet. But for people to be related in the DNA and the harmonics, that's the key to it because that has always been the key. The fallen have never had any other interest but that DNA strand, the double helix, which is found on the majority of hieroglyphics, if you want to call them that. I think they're kind of like what's really there. I don't call it a hieroglyphic. I call it fact. It's a tablet that shows. You don't need a translator. You know exactly what they're showing you. But any culture has the double helix, whether it's found in Mexico City with the Toltecs, whether it's found in Sumeria, whether it's found in Egypt itself. The DNA double helix is on everything because that's what the Anunnaki or the fallen angels or the aliens, whatever you want to call them, but we know them as that's the fallen. They have been, that's their only objective is to manipulate that human genome. That's it. Any way they can.
And that has been the goal of Satan since the Garden of Eden, since God created human beings in our image. Okay, John, I tell everybody because a lot of people have a hard time when they're like, look at this, it's not written in the Bible, all of this stuff, all these giants, all these entities, it's not written in the Bible. But the Bible is only the account of the human beings. Those are made in God's image.
Yes.
That's what the Bible is. And it only pertains to us human beings. There are other beings that he created. There was the ones before us. There was ones but we are the only ones created in his image.
100%.
And that is why Satan and his minions have targeted us to manipulate and to corrupt our DNA. I mean, that's what they did right from their goal was to corrupt it so badly that Christ couldn't be born.
Exactly. Yeah. Because Adam and Eve were on the divine council, in Psalms 82, and they were higher. They were the highest above anything God created underneath God, but higher than anything else that he had. And it's literal. It's that simple. They're kind of like, I don't like them. How come they get to go up there? We don't.
Right.
And it's like
they're corrupting our DNA now to make sure that we don't get through. We don't get.
Yes, the whole transhumanism thing, and
right.
That's in every mainstream news about how they want you to. Oh, no more room for humans, and y'all need ascend, and everything that has basically been told in the scripture and by every Luciferian about these ascending masters and their freaking, excuse my language. I said freaking, but their ascending masters agenda. And it's all, but like I said, you're right. It's
the
all
Galactic
based.
Federation of Light and their ascended masters. Oh my
Yes,
Lord.
Helena Blavatsky, and I mean,
Yes.
especially her. And then
Yes.
I don't know. I don't go into the whole Freemasonry thing because people really come after me. But it's like anybody who's even maybe even wrote about that, the higher ones that people know about or whatever. Because I do know I'm friends with some Freemasons, and the ones who are my friend, they never talked about anything. They weren't on TikTok. They never, they don't say nothing.
Right. Well, they
so
may
I was
not.
like,
Be, they may
I'm
not
like,
be high.
well,
They may not be high enough to even know what they're in.
Yeah, that's like I said, people can argue that, and I don't really get into that, but I just know that the one that I knew, there were a lot of events that I saw him, go through, and not like anything had to do with the lodge or anything, but just kind of like out in the civilian world, I guess you could put it as.
Yeah.
And this guy was definitely high up there.
Okay.
And he didn't. If I told him something, he would listen to what I had to say because of my dreams and visions. He'd be like, he would just nod at me, and I'm like, okay, I don't want to know, but. And he goes, I'm gonna tell you this one time, and this is it. And he goes, it's nothing even exciting, so don't get excited about it. He goes, you're an outer circle man who knows inner circle things, and that was it. And the only reason I was friends with him was because I rebuilt a motor for him, an engine out of a 66 Mustang. So that's what remotely why he even liked me. Other than that, they real ones keep to themselves. They don't if you're not in the club, that that's it.
Yeah,
I think they look down on us, right?
Oh, they do.
Yeah,
That's
I mean, like I said, they don't even give you time to think about that. Like they don't give you enough space in their head.
The ones that are rapping or flapping their mouths on social media are see.
All I will say about that is the ones who talk a lot, I guarantee if they went to a certain lodge in a southern state that starts with MISS, they would. I like to do a live over there just to show, like, well, come talk to this lodge. You flapping your gums. I was like, I bet they're not gonna like you.
You're not gonna take too kindly to that.
They're not. I know that one in particular. He's not. He ain't gonna be. I'd be appalled or highly surprised if he even talked to that person. That was flapping.
Exactly.
I have a question. Going back to the Obama thing.
Yes.
I have heard rumors that he could possibly be the grandson of Hitler, and if that's the case, if he is Tut's father reincarnated, is it just like the body, the bloodline comes from Hitler, but the soul or the spirit or the something entered him?
Well, if he's the Antichrist per se, of course, he rises 3 days later in the mockery of Jesus after the head wound. And that's the apotheosis. Now, through research of, different people, including, I'm going to go back to Quayle, that's supposed to take place. I'm sorry, but, Quayle too, but Dr. Thomas Horn really divulged that information. The actual entry of Lucifer into the flesh is supposed to take place underneath the rotunda in the Capitol Hill.
Oh. And they've had that closed off for some time.
That's what I'm saying. That's the thing. When you go in there, they have a painting. There's a mural up on the ceiling called The Apotheosis of George Washington. And
we haven't even got into the discussion about the symbology with Washington, D.C.
Yes, we can say that for some other time. I mean, that's obviously going to take, that's a long time. But of course, I would love to come back and
we would love to have you back. We've got so much to learn. This just scratched the surface because I think
we need another series, and I think it's
but back to the thing. The apotheosis is where Lucifer enters into the flesh to mock, because, like I said, it has to be an opposite of whatever happens with the Lord. So to deceive people, and but that's, so yes, he's the body, right? He's like, quotation, he's like the Messiah, and then, just like it has the mockery. So another thing is, I was going to say, now this was on the locked PDF, but it's also can be found. It's just I don't remember it, but it did happen. When it happened, I don't know. I'm sure y'all can find it. Okay, Game of Thrones was popular, right? And it still may be. I don't know. I don't watch it, but they brought in a chair to the Oval Office. I don't know if they promoted the series or whatever, but anyhow, they brought in a chair and they brought in a crossbow and they brought in a crown in the Oval Office, and they got Barack Obama sitting on that chair.
Yep.
And with everything that is described in the White Horse prophecy of the apocalypse.
I'm going to pull it up for us right now. There you go.
There it is. That's real.
Whoa.
Everything he has is from the White Horse prophecy of Revelation. The crossbow, the crown, and look at that chair he's in.
That's creepy.
Yep. And it says White House. It was in the business. Hold on a minute. Let me go out of here. Let me pull up the actual article because it was in the business.
They've rubbed this stuff in our face.
Oh gosh, yes.
And if you look at his head from the side, he has a lot of scarring, which people have claimed that's not from. That's almost like cranial reconstruction. Like
Yeah,
I'm
gonna say that cranial reconstruction was because here, I'm gonna pull this up to show you guys real quick.
I think he had a elongated skull.
I believe he had an elongated skull. And let me pull this up so you guys could take a look at this. This was compared.
Yes, right there. Yeah.
And here's him and
Michael.
Michelle. Michael. Okay, so let's pull up Obama's and I've shown this in the past to you guys. His head scars. But so much has gotten scrubbed. If you look at his scars on his head, here we go, right here.
Ooh.
It looks as if he's had cranial reconstruction. So they've taken his elongated skull and they've reconstructed it to be normal.
Because you can tell, like any elongated skull found, whether it's in Peru or even southern of South America, Argentina. You could tell, and L.A. Marzulli did a lot of that findings with that. I can't remember the other guy's name actually, but they, you could tell whether it was, like stretched by a human, like the cranial boarding or whatever they call it.
Yeah.
You could tell whether it's born like that or if you manipulated it. But the way that they describe his scars is like, it was born like that, and it almost looks like he had, like, brain surgeons have come out and said, it looks like he had a full cranial reconstruction.
Yep.
Like they
and nothing has ever been mentioned. Okay, those scars, guys, those are some pretty intense scars on his head. You would think that him being president of the United States, that in his biography it would list, an accident that had happened in an
accident. Yes, exactly. And it says nothing. There's no nothing. I mean, people can come forward and say that work on skulls. Surgeons are like, that's definitely some kind of reconstructive surgery. Right.
But there's been nothing in his biography. Yes. I mean, as with Prince William, we know that he had a skull injury when he was 8 years old.
Oh yeah, they tell us that.
Right, we have documentation of that, but we have nothing to even talk about, Obama's scars.
So what would be the point of going back to the early stories of the bodies that were recovered? What's the point of the bodies if it's the spirit that's going to enter into someone else, like the Antichrist and blah, blah, blah?
Well, it's the thing that what Osiris did, because when the apotheosis, now, like I said, each stage, and like I said, I don't recommend reading it, but you can find it in like the writings of Crowley with Thelema. There's stages of a ritual. So we know that it has to be a mockery with the Lucifer entering the flesh to mock Jesus. Now, with the body of Osiris, or Nimrod, he became one of them. So that's that's why the recovery of him, because also too, when Ishtar put him back together and she built the phallus or an obelisk, basically what is in Washington D.C. We can get into that next time. She brought him to life from Hades and got impregnated with the golden phallus, and then his body being back together. So that's how powerful that he was. So they have to have him, not for implications of Lucifer entering the flesh, but to make these an army, if you will, of the Übermenschen, which the Nazis talk extremely about. And that's not any kind of a spirit entering anything. That is manipulating a human and turning them into a Gibberum, just like Nimrod did. That's the whole point of the Übermenschen.
Okay. And if you remember, was it Hillary? There was like on the FBI vault or one of those vaults, the Black Vault or something, there was emails where Hillary was interested in finding Gilgamesh.
Oh, she was very interested in
finding. Yeah, for sure. And the thing is, it's probably because that's her, quote unquote husband. It's like it because if she's reincarnated Ishtar, that would have been her brother /
well,
husband.
If she takes control of I'm not even gonna go there. Never mind, forget it. I was gonna make some remark about her holding her Bill's jewels in her purse. So maybe
they try to correlate when the vice president now wore the purple and done with pearls. Yeah. Right? They correlated that to Revelations. Well, here's something that may have been missed, but I said long ago, probably maybe 2 or 3 months. I don't remember what incident it was with the president, but Hillary tweeted a photo of her wearing the purple donned with pearls, and she was hinting at a run of 2024. And that wasn't stayed very long, but I'm thinking she's not just wearing that. It's, she put that on for a reason, and it was scrubbed quickly, but it did exist.
Lisa Simpson wore purple with pearls, did she not?
Yeah, they throw all because that depicts the W of Babylon that's going to drink on the blood of the saints and basically fornicate and all that stuff. But yes, and I'm only connecting it as simply as Parsons and Hubbard wanted to bring back the W of Babylon, and then he says that her name's Hilarion, and then that's what she wore in the scripture. So it's like, everybody, how come all these
those with eyes to see and ears to hear?
Yes. And it's like, when Hillary tweeted that picture of her wearing that, I don't remember what event it was. I don't know if Biden might have fell off his bicycle or it's somewhere around there. I remember she tweeted that, and she was wearing the exact thing Kamala wore.
Wow.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I've seen Kamala wear that outfit, and it could just be a trick to have us look over there.
100%. Really because I think that Hillary's the main one. I mean, there's just so much. I don't know. To me, it's like, what are the chances that I know Parsons said Hilarion. It's like,
we don't believe in coincidences here.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Happenstance, coincidences. We don't believe in that.
I'm just wondering how all this ties to JPL and NASA, because it's all connected. I just haven't put all the pieces together.
Yeah, and like I said, I'm sure y'all know that Warner von Braun and stuff was the head of all that. All Germans were head of any kind of a space. Now, I the whole flat Earth thing, it's logical to me. There is lots of evidence for that. I don't particularly get into that, but I'm not gonna say, hey, that's untrue. I'm just saying it's logical. There's lots of things that make it logical in my mind.
Right. Yeah.
Now, whether or not we can leave this planet or we're not on the planet or, there is no other planets. The only reason why that I believe in planets is because of the, about Rahab. And, of course, on the dollar bill, which can be another story for next time about how, that's the prophecy of the return of Lucifer above the pyramid. That was written by the Humane Sibyl. She was an oracle, which frequented the Vatican in the early days of Peter. So that's another story I could tell you.
Well, we're going to have you back because we are coming up on the 2-hour mark. And
yes,
and we've
hardly scratched the
I
surface.
know.
Well, like I said, I just have a lot of stuff. I had a very incredible experience with a conversion to the believer in Jesus, and I like I said before, I asked him in my heart, and I said, I believe in you. Full jump in. I was, yes, Lord. I'm ready. I was made new again, and then I find myself, Lord, I don't like to burden you, but can you kind of tell me what's going on? I mean, I just don't get it. I don't. I prayed heavy.
For it. You
I did. Yeah,
there, John.
100%. I said, what am I on? Why do I have a job? Why do I have to eat food? Why do I got to do all these things? I don't get it. And well, be careful what you ask for. You just might get it.
Absolutely.
And that happened. And then I'm like, and then he told me, he goes, to whom the truth is known, much is required. And yeah.
Well, I got to say that, what I'm going to do, guys, is I'm going to put the link to John's YouTube. There's only one video over there, but it's fantastic. You got to watch it. I'm also going to put the link into his TikTok. He has literally video after video after video, and just the information that, because if you're not familiar with TikTok, the videos they're very short. So he tries to put as much information in this little amount of time as he can. It's weird because I get started and I start watching, and before I know it, an hour's gone by and I've just nothing but watched videos. So, but I will put the links in for you guys to catch up on the information. So the next time that he comes, that you guys will have questions for him in the chat room, and we can get some questions answered. I do want to, next time you come on, talk about the whole Washington thing, some more about the United States. But yeah.
Definitely. I appreciate it. And yes, my YouTube, I will definitely, I get lots of comments, and then of course comments on my videos on there, my one video, and I'm like, I will make some more.
Hey, you can share this one. Can he share this one?
Absolutely. I'll send you the link.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Because like I said, I need some guidance on this, because I wouldn't know where to.
Like I told you when we talked earlier today, this program that we're using right now, the StreamYard, you can either you can record and upload it to your YouTube, or you can go live on it. You can do Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch. Yeah,
good.
Twitch. There's a number of platforms that you can use to live stream, or to even, like I said, record your video and then upload it to your wherever you want it.
That's great. And like I said, I really enjoy this. Of course, the first time, but somebody who can keep me on topic. That's what I need.
It's always hard to keep ourselves on topic.
I know, right?
I know. We go way far left field.
I'll mention that in my videos. I'm like, well, here I am. I know I ramble, but just, and then, they get a kick out of that, because it's real. Like I said, I'm not a creator. I don't have a creator fund. I tell people, look, I don't have a dog in this hunt. I'm just telling you before the time is short. And a lot of times I just want to say, at some point this isn't going to matter, because we're going to be in chaos.
Yeah.
Very soon.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm like, you kind of, and I always give my disclaimer as, you ain't got to listen to me, but go to Jesus in prayer. Amen. And he'll tell you everything. Your relationship with him, you may not even have to know any of this stuff. You just need to know him. I said, I tell people, I asked for this. I had to know, because it was hard for me, to believe. And I begged for that. I said, I'm sorry. I said, I believe in you, but I just don't, I have to know. And that's just my journey.
Yeah.
But not every believer needs to even know about the Nephilim, because they have full faith in the Lord, and they don't have to look away from
Well,
it.
I think that they are going to need to know it sooner or later, because I think that we're going to start seeing things.
I can agree with that. Yes, on that note, yes, ma'am, I can agree with that because,
The Bible tells us that men's hearts will fail.
yes, exactly. And you are, and I know
Lord, you
y'all
took the
know
words out of my mouth again.
exactly. You are exactly right. That's exactly the number one example that, and then he says, for things coming upon. Now, upon don't mean from the sky, it means from beneath.
From beneath, yes.
Oh.
So, anything you want to talk next time, like I said, we talk about more about giants and hollow earth and stuff,
Yes.
but
Yeah, and dumbs. I'm thinking like
100%.
dumbs.
I'll
Yeah.
tell y'all a story about one. I've never done a TikTok video about Phil Schneider, but next show, let's include him in there, and I'll tell you about him.
Phil Schneider. All right.
People have been begging about him.
R.I.P.
Oh, yeah.
Phil. Man, that's definitely. Can we ask you to come back maybe next Wednesday night?
Yes.
Woohoo!
Yes.
Awesome.
I can do it.
Awesome. All right, guys, you heard it. John will be back with us next Wednesday night, and we're going to pick up where we left. We're going to pick up where we left off, and continue this conversation. John, I really want to thank you.
I
Yes,
think
you've
y'all.
been amazing.
I
Thank you so
appreciate
much.
that. Oh, no problem. I appreciate what happened.
All right. So, Trisha, thank you for joining us as well. You'll be back next Wednesday as well, I hope.
Okay.
Okay.
I'd love to. Yeah.
Okay. And we will, I'll be in touch with you before then, John, as well. So,
Yes.
Bye.
Yes.
all right. Well, thank you for joining us. I want to thank everybody in our chat room. Do we have any other questions before we close? Do you think?
There's a couple that I actually posted earlier. This one here sparked my interest quite
Rabbi
a bit.
is in charge of getting the red heifer, says that he knows the Messiah. He's been talking to her regularly. Yes, he has been. We did a video on that a few months ago. Yep. Yeah, the red heifers. That's I think I put it in our chat. An article that they were talking about things that are going on. Is it the Levite priests are now doing something? I don't know, at the Temple Mount. I'll have to pull it for us.
Oh yeah, I did. Yeah. So, yeah. The old third temple.
Yep, things are happening over there very quickly.
Progressing, yeah.
They are.
Very fast.
Yeah. Any other questions? Was there?
Taking a look right now.
Okay.
Questions
I'm wondering
about
if next week can John give us his thoughts on the iPet Goat too?
Ooh. Are you familiar with iPet Goat?
No, I'm not.
I will send it. What? I will. You know what, John? I'm going to pull that for you right now. I have 2% left on my phone, and I'm going to pull it and find it for you, and I'll text it to you right now.
Okay. I'm looking at
This
that.
is a video made by Heliofont a number of years ago. They only created one video, and this was it.
Okay.
And wait till you see it.
It sounds interesting.
Okay, copy, and I'm going to send it to you to your phone right now. There you go. I just sent it. Okay, so maybe you can watch that, and we'll talk about that next week.
Yes, I'll do that.
Sounds good. All right, John, I want to thank you for joining us. I want to thank everybody in the chat room for joining us as well. I want to thank all of our moderators. We will be back tomorrow night. Hopefully, I'm feeling a little bit better, and we can just have one of our regular shows just to sit with you guys and talk with Ernie and myself. And so until then, remember, eyes open, no fear.
Good night.